So we won the 100 Years' War in 5 years, and we consolidated the entirety of France, centralized the government, and enacted our natural borders from the Pyrenees to the Netherlands, with 10 million population under direct control and a steady income. This is a bit of a more advanced video, so by watching this, you're gonna learn how to properly expand quicker, consolidate faster, grow your economy a lot faster too, because we have a part dedicated to the economic buildup of your country and scaling and urbanization. If you haven't yet gotten EU5 or want to get any game from the Paradox forums, consider using my link. I would really appreciate it. And I've got a bit of a request, guys. So when it comes to subscribing, I'm trying to get to 250,000 by the end of the year. It's a big ask, I know, but if you enjoy the content, really, I would very much so appreciate it. Thank you very much for considering it. The French in Europa Universalis 5 start off as one of the strongest nations in the game and stay as one of the strongest. They've got almost 6 million population from day one, 112 tax base, and pretty much the entirety of the French region belongs to them via their various subjects, with the exception of Aquitaine and Picardy, which we will be reclaiming in the first war against the English. And I want you guys to take note, in this particular campaign, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the more intermediate and advanced mechanics for Europa Universalis 5. I'm assuming that you guys have watched my previous videos, you've watched my beginner guides and all the other mechanics guides that you'll also find linked in the description below if you haven't yet watched them. So this video, not only am I going to tell you how to turn France into an absolute behemoth, but I'm going to tell you how to turn any nation in Europa Universalis 5 into a behemoth by better understanding the more advanced and intermediate mechanics of the game. First off, we have a few things we need to do before we click anything, because France does start off with a pretty bad economic situation. So you're probably noticing we've got a ton of forts. We're paying literally 30 ducats monthly for forts alone, or 15 if we go on 50% maintenance. That means we're gonna have to delete a lot of fortifications. When it comes to deleting fortifications, I recommend you delete forts that are not the capital of your provinces. So we go to the provincial map mode and we see that, for example, this particular province capital is Reims. It is not Châlons-en-Champagne, which means that this fortification is just a waste of a fort. We're gonna destroy this. We already have a fortification in Reims, which is more than enough. You can tell if a location is a capital of its particular province because it has the silver outline around the icon. So another one here, Montauban is not a capital of its particular province. We're going to delete that one as well. And because we're going to be fighting the English, we will need some fortifications along the English line, which means we're going to keep almost all of the forts along the English line, basically the western forts, whilst the eastern forts we can delete. So we can delete all of these here. So we'll rebuild these later down the line. Once we've consolidated our realm, we've got a really good economy going, and we can afford to have as many fortifications as what we start with. Another way to determine which fort is best to keep or not is by going to the topographical map, which is in the last tab, and that's going to show you whether that location is easy or a little bit more difficult to defend. So in the case of Flatlands, we want to delete those forts in general if we can, and if they're not capitals. So here we've got two capitals adjacent to one another. We're going to delete the one in the flatland, keep the one in the hill, as hills will provide +1 attacker penalty in combat, which means if we were to fight an army that is sieging down this fortification, we would gain an advantage and likely win. I think this is enough fortifications. I left a few by the border with the Aragonese just in case they ally the British. And now we're going to crank up our cost of court to maximum. We're going to keep our diplomatic spending around 5.51 minus. That's going to give us an extra 14 loyalty of subjects. Why are we doing that? Well, because as the French, we start with 38 subjects. You might have noticed on 0 stability, we're actually losing a lot of stability, and that's because of our Appanages. The unique type of subject the French have reduce your stability. That being said, we will crank up our stability to maximum 2, and we're going to go to trade. Now, since we are at the trade screen, I want to teach you guys a little bit here because it's very important that you know how to deal with trade. Never ever do this. Automate your markets and trade. If you're new to the game and you've basically played it for 5-6 hours, sure, do that. I guess it takes a couple of neurons to use your brain, but if you're willing to learn the game, turn it off. Do not automate that. You want to automate your individual markets right here, this little button here. Click that to automate it. Do not automate the entire thing, and I'll tell you in a second why. And once you do automate the actual market itself, see what happened? The market automation went to 0. Why do you want to only automate the market themselves? Is because you have the option of using both automated and manually your markets by clicking this particular individual button for each market. So what happens is we want to have a certain percentage of our market automated. So the AI uses the trade capacity and establishes trade routes for us. And we also want to have some of these manually done, 20% or 20.1% done by the AI, and the rest of 3 point something manually. Why is that? Because we want to have certain trades that we always keep going for various reasons. Be it you want to import from another market to spread the institution, or you want to import a specific good to not have a specific shortage like gold or silver or dyes or whatever, although we are probably going to be exporting dyes to people because we have a lot. That's just an example. The way that's done is by locking the trade. So you see right here, this is a locked trade, which means the AI will not be able to cancel this trade. We manually have to cancel it or increase the trade capacity or whatever we want to do with it. Now that we've settled on that, another important thing to note is that when you do trade, even though you might have, say, I don't know, 20 trade capacity, let's max it out. Let's go 22, 24 trade capacity. What's that going to do? Waste all of our trade capacity. Why? Because even though you did set up 24 trade capacity, there is not that much gold available in the prog market, and you're not going to need that much gold. We can store up to 420 gold, but there's currently only 11 in the prog market, and this particular market will have its favorites, right? It's not going to trade with you all of that gold. It's going to trade with everybody, and you might not be their favorite person, so you might not get that much of that share of gold. So we're going to cancel this trade route altogether. If you hold shift, by the way, you can add an extra 10 trade capacity, and if you hold out, you add 0.10, so you can add more or less based off of that. I'm going to cancel everything. I'm going to keep it on market automation because honestly the AI does a pretty good job early on, and there's nothing specific for us at the start of the campaign as Paris that we want to really focus on. I mean, sure, I can do one trade capacity on the gold. I'm not sure how much of that I'm going to get, but eventually I'm going to have to cancel this in a couple of months most likely. Now let's close this up, because if you really want to learn how to use trade, you actually want to use your markets. So you click on the market map, and then you click on whatever market you want to start trading with, or whatever market you want to start trading from. Let's say we click on Paris, we sort by goods balance, and then we see we have a lot of shortages. Fine cloth, we've got 22 market balance shortage. That is a lot of demand for fine cloth, a lot of fancy people, and not enough fancy clothing for them. If we want to make money, we basically just have to import fancy cloth, carpentry, furniture, olives, wild game. Literally right here it shows you all the goods in high demand. The AI does a really good job of importing these things. Not always, but most of the time it does. So we're going to trust the AI is going to be importing all of these individual goods. Right now there's not much fine cloth in the market. In general, there's not much fine cloth in the world at the start of the campaign. We'll get back to the markets themselves and how we can maximize them once we start actually playing and we see some differences in the market and we actually have something to work with. But I showed you that because we will start in Paris creating some fine cloth. We got a Tailor's Guild here, and you see the profit for Tailor's Guild in Paris is 7.17 ducats. That is a lot. We're gonna first off queue one in Paris. We can also obviously deselect Paris, and we can click on the Tailor's Guild, and we can see where we can build Tailor's Guild and get a decent profit off of it. So we can build another Tailor's Guild in Vods. The main good you want to build early on, however, is the marketplaces. So marketplaces are just pure profit, right? You want to spam these as much as possible. Marketplaces will give you a lot, and I really mean an absolute lot of money. We're gonna get some around our core areas around Paris, and that's it. We don't want to have too many marketplaces also because here's the kicker. As the French, we start with 8% crown power. Crown power below 25% gives a lot of debuffs, but more importantly, the amount of crown power determines the amount of trade income. So even if we made 1,000 ducats from all of these marketplaces we're spamming, we only get 8% of 1,000 ducats, which is 80 ducats. Fortunately, we are not making 1,000 ducats, so yeah, in essence, what's happening is we go to balance again. The marketplaces themselves cost 3.74 right now, and we're getting 5 ducats. So we're basically making an actual 2 ducats profit from all the current marketplaces, and we have quite a lot. We got 20 starting marketplaces actually. So the solution to that is to increase our crown power. How do we increase our crown power? I'm sure you know that already because you did watch my estates video that I put out yesterday. 100% sure you know. But in case you don't know, we're gonna do a few things. First off, we we select our army and we're going to assign a general to this army. If we assign a member of our royal family, so a member of the French crown, as a general for our army, we increase the crown power by 25%. Look at that. King Philippe in command, 25%. We can get another 25% from assigning one of our family members in charge of the navy, another one for assigning in charge of the cabinet, and in general, if we have all of our cabinet members from the royal family, we get, again, 25%, with the head of the cabinet giving himself separately another 25. So that's 100% crown power increase. The problem is we only have Philippe. That's it. His son, who is 17, is going to take at least a year before we can assign him in charge of anything. And unfortunately for us, he's not even present in our court. And we've got another one, Philippe de Valois, which is present in our court, and he's 0 years old. So it's going to take a very long time before we actually get crown members to assign in various positions to increase our crown power. So how else are we going to increase our crown power? Well, values, centralization. But wait, we start with 85 decentralization. So we're getting basically nothing from that. The good side with decentralization is that we get increased loyalty of subjects, and we have 38 subjects from day one, but we want centralization for the increasing crown power and proximity cost, which means we increase our control. Right now, our control is based off around our capital, which is in Paris. The more control, the more money and a lot of other bonuses you get out of your provinces, including more crown power. Look at that. Because of 84 control, we get more assimilation speed, crown power, manpower, population, conversion, and promotion speed, levies. But in the south, where we have little to no control, well, it's actually 11 max control when you take into account the average satisfaction. So our current 20 control is going to slowly decrease every month by 0.5 until it reaches 11.59, which is the current maximum control. So because of that, it currently gives minus 80% crown power, minus 80% levies, minus 80% everything, which is really, really bad. The way we increase control, we'll talk more about that later in the video, because we're going to have a part of this video dedicated to control, of course. But very important to note from all this is that the closer your provinces are to the capital, or locations are to the capital, the more control they're going to get, because there is a literal proximity to capital modifier if we go to the proximity modifier map mode. And you see here, the greener they are, the less proximity cost they have. So right now, it's only minus 9 proximity cost from Paris to Corbeil, because we've got the land value that helps with that, and we also have the development, our ruler's administrative skill, and proximity cost of going downstream along a river. This is super important, guys. Going downstream along a river lowers proximity cost massively, which is why Paris is actually a really good capital, because it is in fact downstream from a river. How do we check our river map mode, you ask? Well, welcome to the first part of the intermediate phase of this video. You have to hold Control R, and then you bring up your river map mode, and then you see all your rivers. But hold on, Ludi! I just pressed Control R, nothing's happening. Do it again. Do it again. Press right now, Control R. Is nothing happening? That's because I freaking baited you, you little schnitzel. There is no Control R, okay? There is no river map mode. In fact, you gotta press Escape, you gotta go to your settings, and then you go to Input Binding, and there you gotta scroll down until all the way to the end of the input binding, and you find the river map mode. It is not assigned by default at the start of the game, so you're gonna have to assign it to whatever hotkey you want. I like to assign it to Control R and then confirm, but you can assign it to whatever. It doesn't matter. You can, in fact, you probably should assign it to Control Alt Delete. Don't know. Maybe Alt F4. Assign it to Alt F4. I swear to God, do it right now. Okay. Are you back after closing your game? Good. You deserve that. You deserve it because you didn't leave a like yet, and I'm tired. I'm tired of making these videos. No appreciation. No appreciation. Did you even subscribe? Where's my subscribe? You know, I had a dream to get 250,000 subscribers like 2 years ago. I'm still stuck on 230. I know it's never gonna happen. That's why I even stopped thinking about it at this point. Now, going to the government tab, the French actually start with a lot of unique French content, including the French feudal nobility that increases their diplomatic capacity, cultural capacity, and the ability to have appanages. Without this government reform, you cannot have appanages. That being said, we want to get rid of this eventually, and I'll tell you in this video how later down the line. We also get ancient French taxation that is just 100% a debuff. It gives one possible reform extra to allow for itself to exist, and it just lowers taxes and lowers tax efficiency. So this is going to be very important for us to get rid of. We also have the great offices of the Crown of France, which gives an extra cabinet seat. So that means we start with 3 cabinet seats from day 1. That's pretty good. That's because of this privilege. So you do not want to revoke this privilege, but at the same time, this privilege increases estate power by 200%, my brother. It is brutal. In general, revoking privileges from the nobility is impossible. It costs 293 stability to revoke a single privilege because they start with 73 estate power, and almost all of these are pretty bad. I mean, really, really bad. What we can do instead is we can revoke some of the other privileges, and I'm going to start with communal lands privilege. This is going to lower the estate satisfaction for the commoners by 40%. What can we do to fix that? Well, we're going to give them another privilege. The common militias increases their satisfaction a little bit, as well as lowers the satisfaction of the other jelly ass estates. We also want to give some more privileges to the bourgeoisie. They honestly have a lot of amazing privileges. I love giving commercially advisory council for starters, which increases our trade capacity, and I also enjoy giving out the urban development grants that give us monthly development plus 0.01 until the end of the game. I remember in one of my previous videos somebody actually made a comment saying that if you give this particular privilege from day 1, by the end of the campaign you get only 6 development by 1836. That is true, but that's only if you calculate the 0.01. You got to remember, guys, that if you go to your development, it's not just the 001. There's a lot of percentage modifiers that increase that 001, but without the 001 from that privilege, it would increase nothing. All of these percentage modifiers would do nada, niente, and as you progress in the campaign, you're going to get a ton more percentage modifiers upon that, and then you get more flat modifiers, so you end up with a lot more development as consequence. In general, by the 1600s, you should have 100 development in Paris and your core areas, which right now sit around 36, and a big reason why that happens is because of that privilege. So trust me, give it out from the start of the campaign. It can be painful. It means you're going to get a lot less satisfaction with your estates, but it's still worth it. I'm also going to give embellish great works of art because it pushes us towards centralization and gives tolerance to the true faith a tiny bit, and that's it, nothing else, because now the nobles are at 30%, and if the nobles rebel, that is a problem. So we're going to have to make the nobles a little bit happier, and we're going to do that by giving them the elaborate court life privilege. Why are we doing this? It only gives 20% nobility power, which is not that much compared to some of the other privileges, but more importantly, it gives 20% increase in cultural influence. It's really difficult getting cultural influence increase in this game, and having this by 20% increase from day 1, if we go to society tab, it means we're going to have insane amounts of cultural influence. So we will be able to assimilate not only all of our starting cultures by the 1500s to Francienne, but whatever we expand into, we're going to have an easier time assimilating them also. And this is going to happen by default. I'm not going to have cabinet members assigned to assimilate all of these guys. It's by default going to happen as we centralize more and more. So a big reason of that is this particular privilege, elaborate court life. There we go. We're up to 46 loyalty now, so they should be significantly less disloyal. Only issue is still the peasantry. Also, if you're wondering why this didn't increase from 8% to more because of the Philip in command, is because it needs to wait for 1 month before anything actually changes in the game. After 1 month, you see the change in population. That's why it says plus 545,000 right now. After 1 month, you see the increase in crown power and so on. Now let's get our advances, shall we? Of course, organized religions, maximum diplomats plus 0.05. We do this because it is something that instantly affects the nation, the extra diplomats. So the sooner you get this, the sooner you get benefits off of it. Guilds also instantly affects you as it increases the cap for literacy and availability of burghers and clerics in the case of organized religion. Cost of purchasing food also is going to be instantly affecting you, and it's going to be really good because food is really expensive to purchase sometimes. Construction speed, same thing. Now the rest of these, we can queue them up, of course, but it's very likely that by the time we get to these advances, we're going to get Renaissance, so we're going to have to cancel them so we can start researching Renaissance advances, which is why I always say queue it up, but don't worry about it too much because you will likely have to cancel this at some point in a few years. Rival wise, I recommend not getting any of the Iberians as rivals because it's going to encourage them more to ally the English, and we don't want them to ally the English. We're going to get some weaklings like the Danes, like Scania, which is honestly just a shock that they're even available as a rival, but we're going to go for it if it is the case. Also, we can get a third government reform, and of course we're going to go for the autocracy, which gives the 10% extra crown power. And if we go to our values, because of what we've done with the estates, we're now drifting towards centralization each month, which means this will settle at 6% centralization, as it's based off of the monthly drift that determines the cap right now for moving left or right. We're at 85, so it's going to take a while, which means that we have to double down on that. Every decision that we have the option of moving towards centralization, we will of course take it. And also, I'm just going to go ahead and get a couple more of these imports from Prague temporarily. We might change this around. I'm just kind of coping right now that I'm going to get a lot of this gold, but I am very realistic and I know it's going to be like almost none of that gold that's going to come to us. One more thing we can do to push towards centralization more is use our cabinet to change societal value. So we're going to assign a cabinet member that has a high diplomatic ability, such as Guillem. And if we go back here, we're drifting now by 22 monthly, which means it's going to settle at 22 centralization, which is currently the new cap for centralization. The rest of the cabinet members, what we're actually going to do is something very obvious, I guess you could say. One of them is going to be strengthening government. The other one is going to be stabilizing countries, so we get extra increase for stability as well as for our legitimacy. Now, a very important part of the video is right now, okay guys? Pay close attention to this one. You have 38 subjects. Some of them are Appanages. I'm worried about a couple of vassals. Brittany and Flanders are usually the biggest problems, and Normandy and Burgundy also pretty horrible to deal with. But Normandy and Burgundy are Appanages, so if we play our cards right, we might be able to instantly annex them without issues. That being said, we want to start improving relations with these four particular subjects. Pretty much at the start of the campaign, the Scottish will ask us to join in their war against Balliol. We will join in. Why not? We don't really have a fleet, which is a big problem because it basically means we cannot really advance onto their realms. So we're just supporting the Scots in spirit, really. Now, another very important thing to do before anything else is we have to accept our cultures. We start with Francian as our primary culture, but all the other cultures within France are not yet accepted. So we're going to have to accept the biggest ones: Languedocian, Champenois, Auvergnat, and Picard. So that's 4 more cultures that are now accepted. That's basically an extra 40% of our population that we can recruit as levies. So we've doubled our army size. We still can accept more because we're at 3.86 out of 4 cultural capacity. That's because Languedocian is costing us a lot more, 1.64, to make them an accepted culture compared to some of the other ones here, such as Champenois, which is only 0.15. We can still accept quite a few of these though, to be fair. It's only 0.15 for Poitevin, another 0.15 for Berrichon, but we don't have the prestige for it, so we kind of have to wait for that. Or, ta-da! That's right, you didn't see this event hiding behind me, did you now? No, you didn't. Sire Robert d'Artois is fleeing to England. We've got 2 options. We can get 10 prestige, which is the historical option, or we can provoke the English court, which will trigger the war a lot soon. It's going to trigger regardless, doesn't matter. So the question is, do you want the stability or do you want the prestige? I want the prestige. Why do I want the prestige, Swiper? Is because we want to accept Poitevin as well as we want to accept the Berrichon, both of which, of course, are quite a lot of population. If we really want to min-max this, don't tell anyone. Instead of accepting Languedocian, we could accept pretty much the other ones. Like, we could accept another 3 and not have issues. In order to make a culture accepted, it has to already be tolerated and it has to be 2.5% of your population. So we could accept another 3, whilst Arpitan we cannot accept because it's not yet enough percentage of the population to be accepted, but we can keep them tolerated because they are, of course, 1%. Well, they already are tolerated, so there's not much we can do anyway. We have some Ashkenazis as well, some Provençal and so on, which are not accepted or tolerated, but there are very few of them, so it doesn't make much of a difference. Now, to lower the cost of Languedocian, however, we just need to find whatever nation is the primary nation for this particular culture. So we're going to check around our subjects here, and we found it. The county of Narbonne has primary culture Languedocian. It means that we can ask to improve cultural opinion with them. It is going to cost 10 liberty desire and a diplomat, so we're going to have to wait for a couple of months. But after we do that, it will cost significantly less to have Languedocian as an accepted culture. England refuses to surrender Sire Robert d'Artois. So we're going to go for the first option, which gives us cores on all locations owned by the Duchy of Aquitaine in our realm. Of course, we want those cores, boys. Look at all these juicy cores in the southern parts of France. Absolutely delicious. Now remember how we pissed off our peasantry? Well, check it out. We can only have 5,000 army levies because of that. So if we want to get more than that, we're going to have to bring the satisfaction up to 30%. We could bribe them for 500 ducats, or we can just give another privilege that is not crippling or anything of the sorts. And honestly, the royal and ecclesiastic courts is not bad because it pushes us towards communalism at the cost of pissing off the clergy a tiny bit. So there you go, 38%. And if we go to communalism, our push towards communalism is by 0.15, which means we get rid of individualism, which we don't want. Why have individualism when we can be a communist society? Have communalism. And we got cores on all of the provinces that we previously had as integrated. So at the start of the campaign, most of your country is not cores because the cultures there are not accepted cultures. But because we've accepted all of these bad boys, we now have cores. So that means that our maximum control has actually increased. It's at 12%, although it starts a lot less than that. And if we go to our army tab, we can recruit 56,000 peasants after 1 month has passed, since we now have 39% satisfaction with the commoner. So that's another question that I've seen asked in the comment section a lot. How come I cannot raise that many soldiers as you? It means you probably pissed off one of these states, or you maybe didn't even give out this privilege, which again makes more peasant levy size, 20% bigger peasant levy size. Also, in the case of these particular events, I hate being that guy, but always go for the option that gives you some bonuses. So in this case, we got 7 stability out of that. Pretty good. As with the case of the Scots king in exile, the historical option, which is what the AI goes for if you set it to historical AI, is to grant King David the resources of the court. We are, however, scumbags. Instead, we're gonna give King David II the bruise to the English. Ha! And because of that, we gain an extra 10 prestige. So what does that mean, you ask? Well, buddy boy, it means we can do 1 and a 2 more accepted cultures. Oh, Baludi, we are over our accepted cultures by 1.25. Oh no! Wait for it. Remember, we have Monsieur Narbonnet over here. He needs to be at 50% loyalty. So right now, let's see, he's not at 50% loyalty. Okay, we're gonna have to crank up this to maximum in that case. And now, because he is at 50% loyalty, we can ask to improve cultural opinion, which means if we go back here, it's not 5.2, it's 4.5 out of 4 cultural capacity now, since Languedocian views French way better, which means pops that are that particular culture get 5% more satisfaction, and to make them accepted only cost 0.9 cultural capacity right now. We actually can improve cultural opinion with all the cultures that we've currently accepted, as all of the leaders of those particular cultures are our subjects. So how does a nation become leader of a particular culture? Very easy. They have to become the nation with the highest amount of population of that particular culture, if it is their primary culture as well. And if say you want to do this with a culture that is not your subject, well, let's say we go to the Bohemians and we could do the same thing. However, it is in the friendly actions to improve cultural opinion, and it requires 50 favors. So we would have to curry favors with Bohemia in order to do that. And again, this can only be done once every 50 years, which means that we cannot improve our cultural opinion now with the Duchy of Bourbon. We have to wait for 50 years. In 1387, we can do this again with our subject at least. Oh, right. We also can accept Bourguignon now, since we've got the prestige for it. Again, it pushes us to 4.6 out of 4, which means we do have less efficiency of cabinet and our cultural influence is lowered a tiny bit, but we make up for it by having given out that privilege to the nobility estate, if you remember. The Princes of the Blood is an event that directly affects your relations with the Appanages, and depending on the option you go for, it really can make your game a lot easier, smoother, or more difficult. The way this works is, if you go for the first option, every time you annex an appanage, you will move by 5 towards centralization society value, and the French feudal nobility government reform will become obsolete once there are no more appanages. So once you got rid of all the appanages, you get rid of that reform, you don't need to worry about them ever again. The first option also pushes us towards decentralization and gets us opinions with all of our appanages. Second option pushes us again towards decentralization, gives more opinion, and we get lavishing cadet branches, which increases our cost of court by 10%, as well as it gives 10 loyalty as subjects for 10 years. It is really expensive. We're not going to go for that. The third option lowers their opinion with us, but we push towards centralization whilst getting all the other bonuses. The way that loyalty to opinion works is 10 opinion with the nation is 1 loyalty. So if we were to lower the loyalty with all of our Appanages by 25, that would be 2.5 less loyalty with each one of our Appanages until we go back and improve that loyalty again. So if we go over around everywhere, it's actually not that bad. It would not make them super disloyal. So honestly, go for the third option to get the extra push for centralization. It really is worth it. That being said, there's another issue here. If we go back to values, since we're now at 50-90 centralization, we only get plus 11 loyalty of subjects compared to the plus 17 that we had earlier. So we will have to keep us on maximum spending for the 30 loyalty increase with our subjects for quite some time. That being said, we've got 5 diplomats, so it's time to improve relations with all of our Appanages, or at least with as many as we can for now. When it comes to your heirs also, if you have someone that's intelligent, it means that you will get a lot more admin ability by the time that he grows up. Now, the truth is, you also still want to double down on the admin education, even with the intelligent trait. Why? Because admin is the bread and butter of your nation. Your admin ability for your leader determines how much proximity cost reduction you get, the building cost, the power increase. So at 100 admin, we would get 25 crown power increase minus 10 proximity cost. So we would have a lot more control, a lot more power, which means we would have more money. Or if you have a lot of money, of course, go for the expensive education, which is 0.75 for all of the abilities. But 2% cost of court is really a ton of money. So put things into perspective. If we were to go for full cost of court, that's 45 ducats right now until we reach 100 legitimacy. Yeah, I'm also going to be spamming a few more buildings because we still need a lot more Tailor guilds, and we've got a lot of extra burgers that we can still use. Also, actually, I think these are very low control provinces, aren't there? Of course, prioritize the provinces that have really high control. So that means Paris, this particular city too. We eventually want to turn these adjacent locations to Paris into towns and cities as well. It is going to be pretty expensive though, so we're not going to do it now, which means we're basically just going to be spamming everything in Paris itself for now. And seeing as the plague is around the corner, we might as well get a hospital in Paris too, but again, only in Paris. One more thing we need to discuss is the 100 Years War situation. This is a really good way of keeping your subjects in check. You can grant subject titles in exchange for some legitimacy and some money. So right now, if we get the strong diplomacy for 5 years for Valentinois, Flanders, and for Brittany, we make them a lot more loyal. For now, what we need to worry about is the États Généraux, or as they translate it to subscribe to Ludiat Historia. That's what that means in French. In Paris. Why are we doing it in Paris? You'll see in a couple seconds why. Before that though, what we're gonna go for is increase ties to neighbors. That will give us 2 diplo reputation whilst this debate is active. We'll increase relations with certain neighbors, and it will give us 5 diplomats, which we can use to increase relations with our subjects even more. So let's go with that. And since we now have 73 parliament support, we can also change that particular law that I mentioned earlier, distribution of power, go for favor the ruler, boom, and we still have 23% parliament support. Take note, if you change laws by yourself without using the parliament, it will be very expensive. It's 106 stability to do it without the parliament, so never do that without the parliament. We could give aristocratic support for 5 legitimacy to the nobility, and we could do humanist ideas as well, which means we're at 48 support. Jesus Christ, really, man? I could also just wait and hope that we get some event that increases our parliament support, so I guess we can just give it a little bit of time. All right, so right now the parliament's about to finish, and we only got negative events, which we didn't take because we didn't want to lose any parliament support, so I'm gonna have to give the privilege out. In most cases, I would not give a privilege out like this, but in playing as the French, we really need to change our laws as soon as we can. And you probably noticed our noblesse is very pissed off. If we go back to estates, they are super royally pissed right now, which means we likely will get a rebellion if we don't bring them up in satisfaction as soon as possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for another law change. Namely, I'm going to go for the itinerant court, which will lower proximity cost through land by 10%. This is extremely good. As you probably would have realized, we are very much a land nation. There is definitely an argument to be made for us becoming a naval society too, but the way that it works right now, if we are staying in Europe, mainland Europe, we want to go full land value. If we want to have an actual empire and we attack and we take over the British Isles, we take over Iberia, Italy, then we can have naval values, because then we can spread our control via the naval tiles a lot easier with naval values. We don't have that as an intention right now. We're 100% planning on becoming a land power. So we're going for land because we already have some progress to land, so why not? And also, check it out. We're now doing 0.42 centralization each month because having a parliament in your capital gives 0.10. That's why we always want to call our parliament in the capital. During the parliament in session, you get extra centralization push, as well as you get some more development push whilst the parliament is located in Paris. Also, because we reached 100 legitimacy, the default cost for cost of court is just 3.35 ducats. If we lose legitimacy, it goes up like crazy. So because we're now making a lot of profit, we can actually start cranking up our stability a tiny bit. And you guessed it, it's more Tailor's Guild time, as well as more Carpenter's Guild time. And last but not least, absolutely a lot more marketplaces, and these we can spam everywhere because they give trade capacity regardless of your control, so they're always going to be great to have everywhere, really. And it seems like it is time for war, or as the French would say, it's a war o'clock, baby. The Defend the Throne of France Casus Belli is an exceptionally good one, and we're going to make the most out of this. We have officially declared the war, and just in time, because guess what, boys, we have a nobility insurgency. However, why did I not care about getting a nobility insurgency? Because I knew the war was going to come, and a nobility insurgency doesn't, in fact, no rebellion triggers whilst you're at war. And by the time the war is finished, we will have 50% nobility satisfaction, because right now it pushes by 0.2 every month towards the equilibrium, which is 76% satisfaction. This is not going to be an easy war. It's going to be a long war, protracted war, and we're going to make sure we don't finish the war until we have our nobles loyal enough, or until we're able to defeat the noble rebellion whenever it happens. Raise the levies, raise the massive fleet of France, all 4 ships in fact. Reminds me of that scene from The Lord of the Rings when he goes like, to war! Damn it, now I gotta watch the Lord of the Rings extended edition again. Whenever all your levies get called up, make sure you make one big stack. We're gonna do it in Paris, which is the most obvious spot to bring them all in. And from there, we're gonna start wiping out English armies as soon as they land into our provinces. We don't want to give them the opportunity to get a foothold here. The English actually have surprisingly good units, better than our units, because the English levies are a unique type of levy that is significantly better than the default levy, which is what we use as the French, namely the feudal tier 1 levy that is pretty poo-poo. It is absolutely poo-poo. So yeah, English stronger, wipe them out whenever they just land their units, and we should be able to win that easily if we have a bigger stack than them, as well as if we have all of our subjects attached to us. We could do, in order to make sure the subjects get attached to us, we go to manage subject, and then we change their stance to supportive stance. You also can do that from the select supportive interaction at the top of the screen. That will assign supportive attitude for all your subjects, so you don't have to individually do it. That being said, if you want them to attach to a specific army, make sure you have the attachment allowed button clicked for that army. All right, let's move, peasants. Move, you little schnitzels. The age of Renaissance has arrived. Let's cut the bullshit here, boys, and stop pretending that we're ever going to go for diplomatic or military focus. In its current stage, they suck. The only reason you would go for diplomatic focus is if you actually want to attempt a world conquest because of the war score cost. We're not doing a world conquest as France. Military, not necessary because we already have pretty strong units. So we're going to go for admin, especially because of local infrastructure that gives the proximity cost minus 2.5. And of course, all the other economic focused advances that we permanently get to keep once we've researched. And there you have it, boys. We now can enforce our peace deal, or as they say, the great de-Englifyination of our country, because there's no more English after. There we go. That is the end of the 100 Years' War in 5 years since we've began it. We finished. We're not disbanding our levies though. This is very important because the second that we unpause, and a month has passed also, of course, we get the massive rebellion. The Civil War! No! Not civilians! Alright, let's go ahead and wipe everybody out now. If we disbanded our levies, we would not have been able to get this many soldiers afterwards for the Civil War, so always take advantage and hold your levies up after the war is over, just so you can more easily wipe out the civil wars. Also, seeing as we are actually making quite a lot of money, we're going to be spamming 4 more hospitals only in the Francian areas for strategic scumbag reasons. Now guys, remember how I mentioned earlier that we have all those rivers and we showed you the rivers on the river map mode? Well, a good thing about that is that it means we can build bridges. As long as you have a road built on a location that has a river, you can afterwards build a bridge on top of that road, and bridges will give you minus 5% local proximity cost as well as minus 10% movement cost. So they're extremely good if you ask me. Highly recommend you build them as soon as you can. And speaking of, we also want to expand our road network as much as possible too. To make the roads more viable, we need to make them cheaper. So if we hover over the price over here, we see that currently lumber is a little bit more expensive in our market. So we want to expand our lumber RGOs or create sawmills before we expand our roads to make them cheaper. By the way, sometimes you might see that you're not able to build in your entire country. That's because you probably have a market filter. So remove the market filter, and then you can see you can build everywhere, not just in the north. We can build in the south as well, or at least we have the option of seeing where we can build in the south now. As long as the 100 Years' War situation is active, we will continuously be able to attack or defend against the British. In this case, we will defend the throne of France against England once more. The problem now is that the war goal is the capital of Middlesex again. And remember, we don't actually have any ships. The only way to get war score is either waiting for the English to land in our country and we wipe them out, or our subjects maybe manage to land in the English land. If we get banking, we'll be able to get access to the docks, which will allow us to actually get 16 sailors per dock monthly, which is huge. And then we also can get some actual proper ships like the early Karak, and then we can actually start landing on the English Isles. So we got a little bit of ways to go, so let's say. The cool part about having your levies raised during wartime is that if we go to our control map mode, we see that we actually get extra maximum control from friendly armies being present in the entirety of the province. And we hover over this, we see that we get an extra 5% friendly armies in province for the entire province, not just that one location. So even here we get the same bonus, an extra 5%, which is pretty significant if you ask me. Our king has died. Long live the new king, Philip VII, which is a bit of underwhelming, but hey, it is what it is. He's 17. He's not even ripe to take over. Whenever our leader dies, we can choose to change our capital to Tours, Toulouse, La Rochelle, or keep it in Paris. We might get other options for cities, keep that in mind. I like to keep it in Paris, but between me and you, Tours is a lot more central of a city compared to Paris. So from Tours, if you look at it, it's almost in the middle of France, which means control would have an easier time spreading to the entirety of France from Tours than it has right now from Paris, which is a lot more northern positioned. That being said, we got 156,000 population in Paris. We got most of our industry in Paris too and everything. So changing it to Tours would put us back for a very long time. Is it worth the investment? Probably. In the long run, that's a lot better. But if we really want to push it for long run, the best spot would be somewhere in the middle of France. So like Châteauroux, for example, would be a really good spot for the capital, or even here in Guéret, or even Mont, or anywhere around this area here would be perfect. That being said, we also check the topographical map, and look at that. The southeastern part of the country is mostly hills and mountains, which means that it's going to be significantly more difficult to increase control here because of these terrains impacting proximity a lot more. Just look at the hills. In proximity impact plus 25%, whilst the mountains get 50% proximity impact, which is brutal. The truth is, Tours is amazing. Tours is right in the middle. Look at that. And it's in the middle of a flatlands. So all of these areas are great. Once you build the roads in all of this part of the country, you build the bridges along the rivers, you got all your proximity reduction buildings in, you will have close to 100 or 80 control in all of the northern part of France, and like 60 control in the southwestern parts of France, with southeast obviously probably being around 30 or 20 because it's just brutal because of the terrain. If we keep it in Paris as we are doing right now, the south, even the south west is not going to have as much control. It's going to be a lot less. So it sucks, but I'll keep it in Paris just because honestly I'm a little bit lazy to set up shop in Tours And the Black Death has officially ended with 2.5 million of our pops having passed away. Can we get a Hornor in the comment section for these amazing pops? Halla freaking Luya. The Castilians were stupid enough to join on the side of the British, which means we're gonna get a lot of war score now by just attacking Castile again and again. And also the British are landing units in the north, so we actually might be getting a super ton of war score. Oh, and we also got the proximity cost modifier for the rest of the campaign from the admin focus of Renaissance Age. Take note, guys, another easy way to fix your food issues is building irrigation. Irrigation is huge. All right, we've broken through the front lines and we got the fort in Burgos, so that means we basically have won the war. We can get as much war score as we want. The problem is that we only can take provinces within the French region with this particular casus belli, so that means we cannot take any provinces in England or any provinces in Castile, but they can take for us if we lose. So the best thing we can get from them is just like money or just release subject or anything of the sorts, really. I'm going to do a separate peace deal with the Castilians. I could technically, if I push for this longer, release Galicia, which I could then take for myself later, but that's not necessarily a big priority for me right now. Instead, I'm just going to ask them to revoke their treaties with the English and the Pope, get some money from them too, and we can even have them release Beira Litoral over here. Then we can take a little bit less money. There we go. That actually works for me. Beautiful. The reason I did that is because we actually can peace out with the English. They've got a lot of war exhaustion, which is pushing them towards peacing out. I have lowered war score, so I actually cannot get anything from them except the white peace. But I'll take the white peace because I don't need to fight them, to be fair. And I want you guys to see how quickly we can annex an appanage, right? So we started annexing Evreux, which is 6.48 each month. That is crazy. We start with a base of 2 rather than 1, so a lot higher base compared to the regular vassals, which is why appanages are way easier to annex. Similarly, if we were to annex Burgundy, it would be until 1361. So we actually can probably do both at the same time. It would increase the time, of course, because we get the multiple annexations at the same time minus 50%. But getting both of these would really make it a lot easier to control the rest of them that are still going to be around. Also important, after the Black Death, you're going to struggle with population getting promoted to fill up the ranks of whatever population died before. So I strongly recommend, if you haven't already done so, spam the libraries. You want to have libraries in every single one of your town and cities, and then that's going to increase the demand of books. So you're going to follow that up with spamming all the scriptoriums imaginable, and then spamming afterwards all the paper makers guild. You should have quite a few from the start of the campaign though, paper makers, but you don't have that many scriptoriums and you actually lack a lot of libraries, so make sure you prioritize those 2 buildings above everything else. The reason you're doing that is because libraries not only increase your institution growth and max literacy, but they also get you population promotion speed plus 10 flat, and also you get more cultural influence, which means you can have an easier time assimilating all the various populations within France to Francienne. Holy mother of God, 9.46 annexation progress per month. Like, what? So we're gonna go against the Popos, and that leads to the Western Schism. The end requirements for the Schism are to either hold more than 2 councils in Bourges or Rome, or wipe out the Papal States. I'm not going to wipe out the Papal States, don't worry. We also have one interaction during this particular situation, which is show unity of faith. What this does is it lowers the unrest and increases population conversion speed in the province where we added in. So, I don't know, we're going to put it here. Don't know where to even put it. Unfortunately for us, I don't think we're going to win this because the Castilians are against us. We can also delay the re-triggering of the 100 Years' War by having a truce with them for a couple of years. That's going to lower our prestige by 10, but it's worth it because honestly, in that war, I literally cannot gain anything from the English right now, whilst they can gain stuff from me. So just going for the 10 prestige is really the best option for us. We can finish the 100 Years' War situation whenever we gain 200 locations in France. We just need 7 more locations, so we just gotta annex Burgundy and we should be good. Now we're also going to go to the production goods tab and we're going to expand RGO. We've got a lot of these that we can make a ton of money off of, including dyes and silk. There you go, baby. Exactly what I was saying. The end of the 100 Years' War, because we have annexed Burgundy. So now we won the 100 Years' War. That means we don't need to go to war with the English anymore. And whenever we're ready, whenever we've consolidated France, because that is the plan for now, we are going to annex all of our subjects and we're going to start expanding into Provence, Dauphin, Savoie, Franche-Comté, all of the fringe areas which are rightful French clay. After we've done that, we focus on building up our economy even more. We're going to go exploration. We're going to do a lot of things. It's also a good idea to go to the diplomacy tab and click on start annexation to see how fast it would be to annex the various subjects. So right now, if we hover over them, we see this one's going to finish in February 1364. Anjou would finish in 66, whilst Brittany in 95. So obviously, I'm going to go for the ones that are a little bit easier to annex, as you would imagine. Some of them are not yet ready to get annexed because we don't have the requirements. In this case, we don't have the relations with Normandy to start annexing them. And because Blois is really, really close to me, I'm going to annex Blois first. And I'm going to annex Bourbon at the same time. We can do two of them and we shouldn't have any issues with it. We're also going to need to start improving relations with Normandy again, because we actually want to prioritize annexing them after these two, since these are very, very close to our capital. And remember the proximity talk we had a few moments ago. The fouage tax is one of the best things we can go for. It's going to give us 2,000 ducats, and we enabled the fouage tax as a new legislation. Levying it as a policy is going to give a maximum taxation for peasants plus 10% and expected cost of court minus 5 at the cost of just making the peasant satisfaction equilibrium lowered by 5%. So I'd say this is pretty worth it. Let's go ahead and levy it for the crown. Since we have so much extra money, let's build up some more marketplaces in our country and also max out all the libraries that we can build around here, which in turn means we're going to need more scriptoriums, because that's going to massively skyrocket the demand for books after we build up those libraries in the south. I've also been pretty busy establishing a proper road network in the northern parts of France, not so much in the south, but we'll work on it, not to fear. We should have completely covered the entirety of the French region with roads in the next 5 years or so. I'm also going to go ahead and change my societal values to communalism with the cabinet member, as right now we've reached the cap with centralization. We're stuck at 22 centralization cap passively, which means the rest of the centralization to reach 100 we're going to get from annexing Appanages. Remember, we get 5 per annexation, from road parliament debates, and from events, pretty much. Communalism, though, we're currently at 17, but we can push it to 32, so that's an extra 10% or so more revoked privilege cost that we desperately need, as well as satisfaction equilibrium for our states. Now, seeing as we do have a lot of roads, it's also time to build the next layer, which is the bridges, because remember, bridges give another 5% local proximity cost reduction alongside the movement cost, so we're going to get even more control in the heartlands of France up north. Also, guys, you probably might have noticed that we've got a little bit of extra income right now. That is because of the payments we're receiving from the Catholic Church. Why is that? Well, because we are currently in the Western Schism. Remember earlier we were talking about this, and basically during this particular situation, the money that the Catholic Church pays is split between us and the Catholic Church. So we get a little bit of those tithes, not only the Pope. We're ready for expansion again. This time we're going into Franche-Comté as well as Aragon and a few of the other stragglers around the border to our eastern flank. We need to make sure that our east and our south is secured. We don't want the Aragonese to have the burn areas. Also, guys, just to point out, make sure you prioritize annexing your Appanages, not your vassals. I'm annexing right now Nevers, which I could say that, oh yeah, it's because it's really close to the capital, and that's true. But the truth is, I thought it was an Appanage. I didn't realize it's a vassal. If I knew it's a vassal, I would not have annexed it. I would have prioritized the Appanages. Remember that Appanages also lower your crown power. They give a lot of debuffs, so you really want to get rid of the Appanages way before you even start thinking about getting rid of the vassals. Crown Prince Louis de Valois is 16, and he's an absolute beast. Look at that, 75, 68, 95 at 16, brother. That is wild. I'm going to sign him as a cabinet advisor, change the guy that's doing the societal values for now, and we're going to promote him to head of the cabinet, which means we get a buttload of extra crown power now. Look at that. We went to 28% crown power from having him as the head of the cabinet. Time to piece them all out one by one. We're grabbing nice borders. That's what we want. Look at that. See, this is what good non-border gorish people do. They grab these type of borders here. Now I'm being extra careful when I'm annexing because I was about to annex another vassal, Bar. I didn't know this is a vassal. I thought it was an appanage. So we're doing Alençon and Vendôme instead, which are both appanages. Dreux is also an appanage, but I don't have the 200 relations with them right now. From Provence, I cannot really take Marseille without a coalition of a lot of nations, including Bohemia. If Bohemia didn't join, I would have taken it. So now we're just going to take most of the western parts. We're going to let them keep Marseille for now. We're going to take Marseille in the next war when we're probably going to annex the entirety of Provence for that matter. I think I found the perfect blend of territory with financial gains from them, so this should work. We're not grabbing Roussillon in this war. We're going to grab Roussillon in the next one because I just got a little bit too much antagonism. Check out my antagonism map mode. It's pretty bad, baby. It's pretty bad. I'm going to have to improve some relations a little bit, you know, not get the biggest coalition in the history of coalitions. The problem with this is if I want to take the lands from Franche-Comté, which was the original war goal, I quite literally would get a coalition of the entirety of the HRE. I'm confident I can take them on, but the problem is I don't want to have to fight coalitions every 5 years when the truce is over, so I'm not going to do that as consequence. I still don't want to go home with nothing, so I'm going to grab ye 4 or 3 locations. It's a decent deal, I'd say. We're going to come back for the rest of their country, though. This is not the last they're going to see of us. And also important to note, what we did with Aragon is we stole their market center. The new market center for Montpellier, well, previously known as Barcelona, which is now Montpellier. That way we got 4 markets within our country if we include the one in Bruges. I was going to actually create my own market in Montpellier, so just stealing the one from Barcelona feels pretty fitting, really. After 1 month passes, this gets rearranged, so we see now that we've got a lot more provinces, not only from our country but from adjacent areas to within the newly established Montpellier market, whilst the Barcelona market lost a lot of locations to the Al-Ghazabidou market, which is the North African one, as well as to the Burgos market, which pretty much took most of the old Barcelona market. Wow. Also, I am a little bit of a douchebag, and after I annex my subject, what I'm doing is I'm assigning my cabinet members to quickly assimilate these areas whilst the control is relatively high. Not so high anymore, so guess I will be taking this heir of mine and I'm going to assign them to other areas. Maybe this one here. This should have higher control. It does have higher control, actually. So it should be a lot easier to assimilate the Normans to Francian. By the end of this campaign, I plan on having only Francian pops all over the entirety of the French region. Also, since we've got a little bit of sailors, we're going to build our very first ship, the famous cog of France. We're going to build it in the south here so it's safe from the onslaught of the British when wars might trigger again. And I'm going to be embracing professional armies, my first institution embrace. Since it did spawn in Paris, might as well go for it. Now, from the new advances that we unlock with the professional army, we will be pushing for armories, which will allow us to build professional armies later down the line because we can have manpower from these armories. And we're also going to be researching the hoofness, more importantly, because this is going to allow us to siege fortifications a lot faster, and the handgunners because it sounds funny. Another really good and underrated building is the coastal fort, which increases our maritime presence by 0.15, and it's also continued to expand our RGOs. We've got quite a lot of them that would bring us a lot of profit in the next 3 years. A really easy way to get rid of coalitions is to just continue to improve relations with nations that have high antagonism. Every single month you lower your antagonism by 1, which is honestly a lot. Sometimes it's more than 1, so we've already gotten the Milanese out of any potential coalition by doing so. And our second son is all grown up, 16 years old, a real man unto himself, which means we assigned him as the leader of our entire fleet, all 1 ship of them, which in turn means we get another 25% from him commanding the entirety of the fleet. So overall we got 31% crown power right now, which is a really big deal. After a little bit of restructuring in our country, we got all 3 three of our cabinet members from the royal estate, the French crown. Also, one of them is the head of cabinet. We've got our king in charge of the army. We've got our heir in charge of the fleets. So we're ending up with 33 crown power right now. Absolutely amazing. Considering we're playing as the French, 33% crown power in 1377 is a very big deal, trust me. I'm also going around to see which straggler Appanages we still have. Angoulême, and we're also annexing Auvergne right now. We're annexing it for freaking 12.86 a month? That is insane, brother. That is actually insane. I think I've basically gotten rid of most of the Appanages, if I'm not mistaken. I think we just need to worry about Brittany and Normandy. I have started annexing Normandy, but it's going to take a while. And Brittany we're going to do last, because Brittany is an actual behemoth. I'd say there's definitely two schools of thought on this. Either you annex Brittany first, or you annex it last. I prefer to annex it last because not having all the various smaller Appanages in particular gets rid of a lot of the debuffs a lot faster. So then it's easier to keep the rest of the bigger Appanages that we have in control until we manage to annex the small boys. And look at that, because we've annexed quite a few of the Appanages too already. We're only getting plus 0.5 Appanage subjects increase for stability decay. Remember, we started with 1.5% increase, which pretty much meant we could never reach 100 stability, no matter how much we invest in it. And we want to push a little bit for stability so we can embrace banking as well as Renaissance. Oh, and I actually forgot, we've got a lot of new areas that we got from the previous conquests. Now this, I'm not gonna bother to integrate myself. I'm actually just gonna create some subjects here, which I know is very ironic. Go ahead and get some custom subject in Franche-Comté. This is gonna be a fiefdom. Why am I doing a fiefdom? Because I don't really have many fiefdoms. So if we go to our subjects, we see that we only have 1 and 2 fiefdoms right now, including the one that we just made in Amont. Remember that all of your subjects' strength is weighed against you based on the type of subject. So all of our vassals have their strength weighed together, which is why they have -5 loyalty, because there's a lot of them compared to us. There is an argument to be made for creating Appanages in these newly conquered areas, since Appanages are a lot faster to integrate, but I also don't want to get the debuffs from the Appanages, so that's why I'm not creating Appanages here. I'm just making regular fiefdoms for now. Fiefdoms also integrate provinces a little bit quicker, so that's an added bonus, I guess. Oh, look at that. Only 4 Appanages left. Oh, that is huge. We're about to get rid of them. Let's go, baby. We're also basically spamming a buttload of bridges. I'm curious what our control is going to look once we get all of this done. So we just annexed Artois, which has a lot of control, almost 100 in all of its provinces. So let's see, after we assign our cabinet members here for a little while, how many Francians we can get in just the first few years. We're at 0.00 in 2 of these provinces, by the way. One of my sons would like to be granted an appanage, which is going to be the coastline here to the north. I wouldn't be against it if it was earlier in the campaign, but right now, nah, I'm good, buddy. I'm really good. This sucks though, because we lose 15 legitimacy, which is a pretty big amount of legitimacy. It's also time that we change our employment system from first come, first serve, which gives traditional economy, to the most profitable first, which will give us the capital economy. Holy mother of God, my son is an absolute beast. Look at this, 162. Come on, man. I'm not saying I'm rooting for my leader to die sooner, but I'm not against it if it happens. So now we've also started building our bridges, and we finished all the roads in the southeast, which should bring it up a little bit. We're also attacking the Aragonese, and how are we doing that? We're using the follow through on threat casus belli, which gives -25% conquest and subjugation costs for attacker. It means we can take significantly more provinces from Aragon. How did we do that? Well, we have a superpower. We used our parliament to get a casus belli on Aragon by claiming the province of Roussillon, and after that we threatened war by going to hostile actions, and let me show you on Castile how it looks like. We clicked on the threaten war, which if they didn't give us the province of Perpinia, then we would attack. They didn't give it to us because they never give, so we automatically start the war with them with this particular casus belli. This is the most powerful casus casus belli that if you're not a beginner to the game, you really should use this. Now we're locked in a war against Aragon and the Pope, so we should be able to absolutely crush them. We've got 100,000 levies, by the way, which is wild. So I'm not actually sure why, but Morocco decided they want to defend the independence of Aragon. Is it because they want to eat them later? They don't want us to eat them? I don't know. Maybe. What I do know is this gives me the opportunity of grabbing a little piece of the southern tip of Iberia so we can actually start colonizing a little bit easier. And I'm grabbing the entirety of the Pyrenees. This is not much antagonism considering the amount of lands that I'm grabbing because we have the follow through on threat casus belli. And there you go, boys. We also got the islands in the south here so we can make a subject out of that. And of course, we're going to make one or actually 3 subjects out of the Pyrenees too. We're going to create first off a brand new and improved, some would even say, Navarra. Huesca is primary culture Aragonese, so I'm going to give Huesca the rest of the Aragonese areas, which is pretty much just this. Now we've got a decent amount of sailors alongside manpower, so we're going to start building up our actual fleet. So my actual size is going to be 60 barks, which is the ships that will help us increase maritime presence as much as possible. And then we're going to have about 40 heavy ships mixed in with a couple of transports so we can actually do naval invasions in the British Isles when we decide to attack them. And we also just got rid of the starting government reform. We're now officially a French monarchy. That is because we don't have any more Appanages. Apparently, after we finished getting rid of the Appanages, which was about 15 years ago, it didn't go away by itself. We couldn't revoke it. We had to wait for the event to happen, which happened just now. And now instead of that reform, we have the French monarchy that is significantly better, but it means we cannot make Appanages anymore, which honestly is not the worst thing ever. The first Hussite wars. To arms! We create an alliance with the Pope and we're going to defend against the Hussite heresy. Scumbag Bohemians, far too long have you taken lands that's rightfully ours. Jesus, man, look at this. Look at the amount of lands they got in the area. That is crazy amounts. I'm also going to show you guys something really cool. Basically, I divided my army in 2 massive stacks. And why did I do that? Well, I assigned this army here to hunt enemy armies within the confines of the Holy Roman Empire borders. The second army I'm going to assign to defend home territory. So whenever enemies will start marching into our provinces, this army is automatically going to chase them out and wipe them out. That way, I can enjoy my coffee, watch a TV series on the second monitor, and win the war at the same time. And yes, I could have made this a little bit smaller. This might be an issue because of attrition, but I'm just lazy. We got so many units, it doesn't make any difference. The entire enemy army is not going to be able to match up to the 50,000 we're sending to attack. Also, if you ever want to select your entire navies, but whenever you do this on the map, it selects the armies, just hold left control, and then you're going to get all the navies selected rather than the armies. We also need to build some more docks because right now we don't have enough sailors for all the ships that we even built. We're going to spam everywhere we have towns or cities on the coastline. That should help us a lot. We do need more towns by the coastline. Now that I think about it, I've been mostly focusing on building towns around Paris, but the coastline around Normandy should also pretty much all of it be towns because we're going to need as many ships as possible and sailors to invade the British. And I mean, look at this, 47,000 population in this location alone is wild. We need to make this into towns. Look at our little train of soldiers going around to defend our country now. Meanwhile, the aggressive stack out here wiping out every single enemy army they can find. Oh god, I love this. Just look at them wipe out the 11,000 there, brother. That is just delicious, man. 5,000 down, we just lost 1,000. I love the fact that we're so overpowered militarily as France. Also, let's have a little bit of a chat about advances, right? So I've embraced Renaissance. First thing we're doing is that we're rushing for the extra cabinet seat on the reform. And truth is, when it comes down to it, every single one of the researches in Renaissance should be prioritized because all of them give us a lot of amazing things like cultural capacity +1, power projection, character life expectancy, and disease resistance. So our monarch, our family members might live longer. Cultural tradition and influence, no-brainer. Rights of the nobility, again, no-brainer because we can lower the rights of the nobility if we go for the right legislation. Stone output's really good too. Art school because we get more influence as well. Theater, we get more tradition. And then because we're also French, we will be of course going for Elan, the army morale +20%, and French language in all courts 20% cultural influence increase. This is wild, guys. Protected harbor we queued up afterwards because it's not as big of a priority as the other researches, and we're also going to queue up early Carac so we can fight the British. Also Panama Canal I cancelled. It's a good research to have, but the other ones again take priority. So we've gone ahead and we've sieged Prague as well as a couple of other provinces within Bohemia because I like to get my own war score against them. 11 war score is enough for me to at the very least cancel a couple of their subjects. They've got way too many subjects around the area. We need to fix that. Yeah, let's just do that. I'm doing this because I know if I don't, the Pope's not gonna ask them to release anything, and then the result of the war is basically irrelevant because they still have, look, all of this. This is all of, more than half of North Italy is subject of Bohemia, man. That is just crazy. At least we got Florence out of there. And now we used our parliament to fabricate claim on Provence. Now I'm going to show you how I get the dubious claim. Threaten war, make sure they don't accept our demands, boom, and now we're going to be in a war with Provence. Booyah shaka, boys. And the war is actually a follow-through on threat war, which means that we're going to be able to grab significantly more lands now. And here's another neat little trick. When you want to merge all of your soldiers into one, but you don't want to have to press G when they all arrive, just right-click on an already existing army, and when they arrive, they automatically merge into that already existing army. I love the fact that this started out as a small incursion on Provence, and it ended up with us somehow going into the south of Italy and crushing the Neapolitans. Oh, let's go, boys. We're gonna go for education of the people, for the socioeconomic law of education of the elites, because the people are clearly the elites in our country, right? There we go, boys. We're gonna liberate Albania. Clearly, this was the goal all along, okay? The liberation of Albania is actually why we went to war with Provence. I didn't want to scare you guys at first because I know you would have asked some weird questions, but the truth is, this is really just an Albania simp campaign. Look at how happy they are. They have 19 relations with us. They love us. Damn ungrateful scumbags. The fate of Provence is already sealed. They shall become our vassal. We're gonna have to improve with them because they do absolutely hate our guts, but it's not the end of the world. They also have Final as a subject, so we technically got 2 vassals for the price of 1. Now, since I've secured the southern flank, I'm gonna secure the northern flank, so I'm gonna start focusing on Hainaut, Brabant, and all these other bad boys. Oh, and we also can release from here another subject. Call it Better Luxembourg or West Luxembourg. Everybody knows, this is common knowledge, by the way, that West Luxembourg is the actual Luxembourg. If you don't have West in your name, are you actually a real country? Let's face it. Remember that we also started as West Francia, right? So yeah, it makes sense now that I think about it. Also, we've unlocked the best building right now, the universities. We want to have universities everywhere because universities are extremely overpowered. Just look at this. They give promotion speed plus 10 flat, migration attraction, literacy, as well as max literacy for nobles and burghers, institution growth. It is just the best building you can have early, mid, and late game. You want to spam universities in every one of your locations if you can. Most are recruiting 10 more units of handgooners, not because they're amazing, because they're actually not, but I just want to have a little bit of a standing army just to look cool. Look at that. Plus, I like the way the unit themselves looks. Since we're at it, we're going to get some armored horsemen too. We got 2. We're going to go for 4, so we have at least 2 regiments on each of the flanks. Some camp followers, so we get some food when we're going around, and more cannons. A lot more cannons. We need cannons to siege down stuff a little bit quicker. To increase maritime presence, if you haven't watched my proximity and control guide yet, which I recommend you watch, it's going to be in the description below, you just have to have your ships patrolling the sea tile. So you literally can just assign the objective, patrol the seas. I recommend about 20 to 25 ships. If it is old barks, then 20 is enough for every 4 sea tiles. The way this works is it will stay in one sea tile until that sea tile reaches 100 maritime presence, then it moves to the other sea tile. Finally, Brittany is properly integrated to, whew, look at all those cores, baby. Okay, let's now start assimilating the population in Brittany. We don't want to have Bretonians, we want to have Frenchmen there. Is this the most optimal way for me to use my cabinet members? Actually, no. If I'm being honest, I probably should just use all 4 of them to increase development if I was being efficient, because it doesn't make any difference whether it's Bretonian or French. These are accepted cultures, so it's the same like it being our primary culture. I'm just doing it honestly because I like to see my culture on the map. So this is like a bit of a role play on my side. This is not just efficient or anything, so keep that in mind. And another day, another threatening of war. Let's go with the war on Hainaut, boys. Now, we're again fighting against Holland, Hainaut, Brabant, and Lorraine. So, if we play our cards right, we can grab the entirety of the lowlands in one war. ended up at the point in the campaign where I literally don't give a single schnitzel about any sort of a coalition anymore. I'm gonna grab Antwerpen and Brabant because that would give me nice borders. All the money they got, humiliate them too, and get war reparations. There we go. That takes care of Brabant. We also want to grab some stuff from Lorraine because, well, this is Alsace-Lorraine, right? So this is clearly French realm. And then with Hainaut, it really is going to end up being quite a lot. I'm actually not going to annex Hainaut. I'm just going to subjugate them too. So we're going to make him into a vassal, grab all the money too. 34 antagonism, which means right now we've got 39 countries that would join in a potential coalition. Let's see who these 39 bad boys are though. So it's pretty much the western border of the Holy Roman Empire, as well as some of the Italian nations. It's not as bad as it seems though. Okay, so now that we're at peace and we've done everything we needed to do, we're doing pretty good. I'd say 400 actual income. We've got a 10 million population, and speaking of, let's check our cultural map mode. Hey, that's not bad. We're seeing a lot more Francian, even in Normandy too. I like that. And look at this, it's been spreading to Champagne without us doing it. So this is the natural spread of Francian around France. Not only there, but look at this, and the south has been spreading, and the center has been spreading without us intentionally doing it. I'm going to finish this part of the campaign here. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And if you haven't yet gotten EU5 or you want to get any game from the Paradox forums, consider using my link. I would really appreciate it. Love y'all, and I'll see you in the next one.